Please state your name, the subjects you taught, and the years you were at Belmont.
My name is Dentler Erdmann. I taught business education at Belmont for 38 years.
Where did you grow up, and where did you go to college?
I grew up in a little town in north central Texas, Vernon, Texas, just on the Oklahoma-Texas state line. When I graduated from high school, I went to the University of Houston, and from there I joined the Navy. And then after the Navy, I was stationed in Hawaii, of course. And after I got out of the Navy, I went back to the University of Hawaii, and then came back to the mainland, went to school at UCLA, which was a big mistake, and then dropped out of school there and finally went back to Cal State LA, where I got my degrees.
How did you decide to become a high school teacher?
But the high school part, I don't know. I've always wanted to be a teacher. In the back of my mind, I always knew that's what I wanted to do, but I kind of put it way in the back of my mind because I knew it would never be financially feasible. It would never have a house, the cars, the kids, and everything I wanted because there was no money in teaching. So I was an accounting major, actually, and that's my degree is in accounting. But in my last year of college, I decided that I didn't want to sit behind a desk. I didn't want to push pencils and crunch numbers. And I went to see a counselor at Cal State LA, and we talked about the subjects I had taken and decided that I could be a business education teacher. And it was there that I decided that I was going to be a teacher. And so I went back one more year, my credential year, and got my teaching credentials.
How different was Belmont from your own high school, Vernon High School?
Uh, you know, on one level, it was no different. Um, we taught English, math, and all this kind of stuff. We had, football games on Friday nights and all this kind of stuff. On that level, it was pretty much the same as Belmont. But on another level, it was completely different. I went to school when the schools were still segregated in Texas, and it was an all-white school. There was absolutely no diversity such as there is at Belmont, which I always considered the greatest strength at Belmont was its diversity. And of course, we didn't have that at Vernon High.
How hard was it to adjust to teaching at Belmont?
Are you kidding? It was the easiest thing I've ever done. When I started teaching, or when you're getting ready to do your student teaching, the counselor out there asked me at what school I wanted to do my student teaching, and taking advice from former students and students that had already been through the teaching process, they told me to ask for, bite my tongue, Marshall High and Wilson High, which I did. But the counselor said, "Nah, Dentler, we think you can handle the Belmont experience." And
Handle the
so
Belmont?
I went to Belmont, and hey, within a week I had fallen in love with that school. It was absolutely no adjustment. It was the greatest thing that ever happened.
How did your relationship with students at Belmont change over the course of your time there?
You know, early on, when I still lived in the neighborhood, my house was a hangout for the kids. I mean, it wasn't unusual to say after a football game on Friday nights that there would be all kinds of kids over there, or even during the week. Kids were hanging around my house, so my relationship was not with just the student, but with the parents, with the neighborhood, and all this kind of stuff. And once I moved out of the neighborhood and moved out to Montebello, I didn't see the kids on that level anymore. So from that standpoint, the closeness I had with the kids changed, but I think my relationship with the kids at Belmont from the day I started teaching until the end was always a really strong relationship. I don't think it changed that much.
What gave you the most satisfaction teaching at Belmont?
The kids,
The kids.
the kids, the incredible kids at Belmont, especially those early kids in the 1960s. Up to say 60 to 68, 69, 70. Just and even after that, we're just there's no kid like Belmont. That's the greatest kids on earth.
What was most frustrating, if anything?
Uh, I worked with a couple of teachers that gave me some problems, and a principal that didn't particularly care for. But basically, there were not a lot of frustrations at Belmont. Just none. They were just I can't really complain about anything. No frustrations.
What did you used to talk about in the faculty lounge?
Oh, the faculty lounge at Belmont in the school that you knew, the school that the old school we call the old school, was just a room over in Mann Hall, and only smokers went to the faculty lounge. And even when we got the new school, there was still people went over to smoke. And I think probably what you're asking is what did the teachers talk about outside the classroom? I think you want to know, did we gossip and things like that? And you know, most of the talk that we did away from the classroom was in the teacher's cafeteria. And then it depended on who you talked to. Like I used to go in early in the morning and have coffee with always the coaches were there, Coach Bateman, Coach Bell, and these guys. And you know, when you talk to the coaches, you talk about sports, girls, fishing. Then in nutrition and lunch, you'd sit with other people, and I can guarantee you that what you talked to Vivian LaFont about was not the same thing that you talked to um, Doc Nichols about. So what you talked about in those circumstances all depended on who you were talking to. But did we talk about the kid? Not really, unless you were real bad or real good. Then we talked about you. But we talked about world events, family, things like that.
1967 was the year some of the school's original buildings came down. Did Belmont have a different feel without the campanile than without it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it wasn't just the campanile. It was that magnificent wrought iron door to the entrance of the campanile. Um, it was that gorgeous terraced lawn that we had out in the front, the senior bench, that incredible arcade, the Sugar Bowl, Kersey Hall. The whole school, everything about it was beautiful. It was it was inviting. You wanted to be there. Um, it's so different from what the new Belmont or the Belmont we have right now, which is 4 stories of concrete slabs, real prison-like, and even out in the center of the campus, there's a great big just a wide expanse of concrete that looks like a prison yard, and a lot of vertical architecture that hints of bars. Um, the school has a fence around it now. Gates are padlocked, and
Why did the buildings come down?
they were not earthquake proof.
Um,
They could have rebarred it. Had we known the power of protest in those days, I think we may have saved the Campanile, or if there had been a stronger push somewhere, we could have saved it all. But we didn't. But it absolutely changed the attitude. You know, the old Belmont was a place where you wanted to be, and the what we call the new Belmont, although it's already 40 years old now, the present campus is a place where you had to be. It wasn't a particularly inviting surrounding, not an environment. It was an environment that was inviting. No, once you tore the Campanile down, I really believe the heart and soul came down with it.
How different was Belmont after the Summer of Love in 1967 and the blowouts of 1968?
You know, it wasn't just Belmont. It was the Summer of Love and the blowouts and things like this. That happened all across the country, and I don't think we've recovered from that yet. You know, about that same time, there were a lot of other things that came into play. You know, it was the first topless bars, the first time we heard of X-rated movies. There were a lot of protests. There were marches in the streets, and guys were burning their draft cards. Women were burning their bras, and birth control pills became a major thing. And you know, all of these things affected the moral fiber of the country, and of course, it's going to affect the moral fiber of Belmont or the attitudes of Belmont and all this kind of stuff. Like I say, I just the changes of the '60s, uh, they still affect us today. I think it was a major change.
Morally, politically?
You know, morally, probably more than politically. Um, uh, Politically, you know, I don't know that it affected that much political. When you look at the presidents and the Congress Congresses and the things that we've elected since haven't changed that much. But I do think there's just a lot of moral laxity in this country now that we didn't have. The age of innocence that we talk about in the 50s was gone. It was a different world.
What have you done since leaving Belmont?
You know, I've had a lifelong dream of working at Dodger Stadium. When I was a kid, I used to listen to baseball games, and of course my dream at that time was to play first base at Evans Field, and that didn't happen, of course. But I went to work at I went to work at Dodger Stadium. I worked there first as a ticket taker, which I asked the Dodgers if I could do because I knew I could run into a lot of former students that way. And I worked there in that section for 2 years, and then when they opened the private suites at Dodger Stadium, then they put me up there, and I worked there for 5 years, and that was an incredible job. That was just incredible. I mean, where you get to work with people like Sandy Koufax and Steve Garvey and Ron Say and Tom Hanks and things like this. It was a dream job.
So the celebrities were always coming in and out of the private
Always. As a matter of fact, I just spent some time in L.A. recently, and Tom Hanks invited me into his suite to watch the game from his suite. And it was great. Knowing these people, it was great. It was a great, fun job. Living in Lubbock now, I'm totally in Lubbock now. I don't work at Dodger Stadium anymore. I'm totally in Lubbock, Texas now, and I volunteer at a local high school here in an accounting class, and I also belong to the Alchemist Club here. We do a lot of work for the Boys and Girls Club, and I've got 4 sisters in this area, so they keep me going. As a matter of fact, the young lady who's doing this interview is my niece. She is the daughter of one of my sisters here, and an incredible lady she is. She's just right now she's got a full ride to George Washington University in Washington D.C. She'll be going there for her master's degrees. She just graduated from Texas Tech with a 4.0 average. So I mean, I've got some great family here. Some really wonderful family here in Lubbock.
And the last question, did you go to your 40-year reunion?
We didn't have a 40-year reunion. Strangely enough, we didn't. We had an 11, and don't ask me about the 11.
Are you talking about Vernon or Belmont?
I think Vernon.
Okay.
I think Vernon. I'm going to talk about Vernon because we had an 11-year reunion because the kids that were supposed to be doing the reunion just didn't get it together, and so we didn't have a 10-year reunion. But we didn't have an 11. We had a 20, and then we had a 30, but we didn't have a 40, but we did have a 50. So I've been to all the reunions. As a matter of fact, I'm in charge of the reunions now. So I put these reunions together. I'm working on one for later this year, in October of this year.
And how many people did you say were coming?
Probably 30, maybe 40 kids now. There are not many of us left. Heck, we graduated in 1950. We're all in our mid-70s, if we're alive at all. We're all in our mid-70s now, and so if we're still alive, we may not be able to come, but there'll be 30 or 40 people at that reunion.
Wow. Well, okay. I hope it's a great time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Anna. Thank you.